Hey there, welcome back to my channel, The Greatest Experiment of All. I have taken a little bit of a hiatus for the past few months because grad school sometimes has periods where it is insane and crazy, and that has been one of these moments for me. So I appreciate you all sticking around and coming back to my channel to view this video, even though it has been a really long time since I've posted anything, and I'm sorry for that, but that is how grad school goes sometimes. So you know what you signed up for when I made my intro video. This video is about things that you should consider when thinking about attending graduate school and choosing a program after interview weekend. And I thought now would be a really great time for me to make this video because I know NC State, the graduate school I attend, had their interview weekend last weekend, and I thought, oh my gosh, we're recruiting, other schools are recruiting, let's dive into graduate school stuff now. I've been focusing more on undergrad recently, and well, recently as in, a few months ago. So now, time to focus on grad school. So I guess, without further ado, let's get started. So there are many things that I considered whenever I attended NC State's interview weekend, as well as other places that I interviewed at. And I decided to kind of make a list. This is not necessarily comprehensive, but it's quite an extensive list of things I think that you should think about when you interview at a program. And to start off, basically, one of them is to consider what the city or town is like where the university is. And that's really important because you kind of want to go into a city that matches your personality. If you like a nightlife, well, one thing is you can't expect to have a super big nightlife as a grad student. However, if you want the option on one weekend here or there to go downtown and have a good time, you need to think about whether or not there is a downtown life for you in the city that you're at. Also, you should consider whether or not you want to have the true college town vibe. If that's important to you, then you should think about that. Also, you should really carefully analyze the students who are currently in the program because they will give you an indication on whether or not they are truly happy and fulfilled in a program. And I think that says a lot for the program itself. I know at NC State, people were very happy whenever I interviewed and they truly seemed content. And let's be honest, graduate students don't give a crap whenever you're alone. They will tell you what's what. And these students all were very happy and welcoming. Whereas at another place that I interviewed, no one ever smiled. And that said a lot for the program to me. So, maybe think about that a little bit. Also, you don't want to attend a university where there's only one PI that you like. One or two PI. And when I say PI, I mean principal investigator. So basically your boss, the lab that you'll join. And the reason you only want to consider schools that have more than one or two PIs that you like is because you might not, one, rotate with them, two, like them, or three, like anyone in their lab, and four, maybe not even like their work once you get into it. It might be something different than what you read online or what you maybe first spoke to them about. Things change all the time in a lab. As far as projects that are available necessarily. And so you might have been recruited on one job, during recruitment weekend, but hey, by the way, that project met a dead end before you even got there, because months have gone by and suddenly, oh, you actually need to tackle this topic. So you want to have a wide range of PIs to choose from, and that's very important. Also, if you're close to your family the way I am, you want to wonder whether or not your family can easily get to you or you to them in a crisis. And by crisis, I mean death in the family or a birth, and that's a good crisis. Or if you can just visit them. I know that my family has always been my support system and my backbone, to be honest. And I couldn't imagine attending a graduate school super far away from them. I'm only 3 hours away from them right now. And sometimes even that's too far because it has been months since I have actually seen them. And sometimes that can be difficult, especially when you're at the most stressful time in your life as of now for some people. I'm one of them. So considering whether or not your family can get to you is, an important thing in my mind. So I just want to provide that for you all. Also, something that a lot of people don't think about is not only, what is the city like, but whether or not you can afford to live and pay the rent in a safe place. I know that I was looking for places where I could live alone, and for me and my family, my safety was of ultimate importance. And so of really big importance for you is graduate school is a stepping stone, okay? The next part of your life is like professional life, okay? And it's very important that your program can develop you professionally. And so you want to look into the things that they offer in their professional development program, such as workshops or panel discussions, different things like that, that, you know, will help give you the skills needed to maybe go into industry or government or whatever your next step is. And you can ask for, you know, that information and then compare between the different programs. And that can be very helpful when you decide to make, you know, the choice of where you want to go. You also want to know if there is plenty of funding for you. And by that, I mean, if the PI can afford you and if the program can afford you. In my program at NC State, the toxicology program, you actually come in on a training grant from NIHS, and that supports you for 2 years. And that gives your PI some buffering room to be able to find a grant to put you on or get a grant funded if they don't have money currently. I know that was a really big deal for my PI. He doesn't have tenure yet. Fingers crossed, though, he had his basically tenure talk recently, so fingers crossed that he actually gets that. But it helped him to be able to continue to recruit people even though he maybe didn't have the funding right then for them. So that's really important to think about. And you can ask the DGP, the Director of Graduate Programs, about whether or not that is something that they offer. Also, you want to know whether or not being a TA, a teaching assistant, is required or if you can just do it for the experience. Some programs require a minimum time that you have to TA. Sometimes it's up to the PI, and if you absolutely don't ever want to become a professor or teach or any of that, you need to consider this. Because it is a time sink. I haven't done it yet, but plenty of my friends and peers have done it, and they say what a huge time sink it is. And even though, you know, technically they're not allowed to require more than a maximum amount of time, you know, you never spend less than that or, you know, equal to that maximum amount of time. You always spend way more. And so it can be a distraction from your research that you might not necessarily want. Another thing you should consider is the average time it takes people to complete the PhD in the program that you're deciding to attend. I know at NC State in our toxicology program, basically you have a maximum of 10 years to complete your PhD. Everyone says, I don't want to see you around here in 10 years, which is a great thing because that means no one's going to like just hold on to you because, you know, you kind of are like cheap labor in a way as a grad student. But basically they give you a maximum of 10 years. You're fully supported for 6 with like grants from your PI or like 2 years from the training grant for the whole program, things like that. But it takes people an average of 4.5 to 5 years to complete their PhD in this program. Some people take a little bit less. And so you need to consider those things, you know, when you are interviewing at a place or being recruited to a place. You also should consider how many papers that students usually have when they graduate, and whether or not there's a required minimum. And this is really important because some programs, you have to publish like 5 papers before you can graduate. Well, for some people, the research moves slowly, so getting 5 papers could take 10 years. Our program at NC State, the toxicology program, as I mentioned, they don't have a minimum requirement that's like official, but most people have 3 papers before they graduate. Some people, though, don't ever have any, but they obviously don't pursue academia after that. Those are things you need to, you know, kind of question and wonder about whenever you interview. Also, you should, while you're analyzing the students for their happiness level and overall fulfillment, you need to consider their interactions with each other. If they seem to be super competitive, maybe you don't want that environment around you, so you would choose not to attend that place. I know at NC State the environment is very collaborative, and so we all tend to get along really, really well. and be more inviting than some other programs, especially ones that I interviewed at whenever I was making the decision for myself. And so while you're looking at their overall fulfillment and happiness, look in on that too. Kind of keep that in the back of your mind, you know. Also, some things that aren't super important, but maybe indicative of the well-being of the program per se, is whether or not the school flew you out. They paid for your tickets to come and visit them if you lived far enough away that they, you know, needed to fly you out, and if they paid for your hotel room, and if they put you in a hotel room by yourself. All of these things can indicate whether or not a program is struggling financially. They don't seem like big things, but if you're comparing a school that flew you out and gave you a room to yourself to a school that did not fly you out and did not put you in a room by yourself, one is going to give a better impression than the other. Even though those things have truly nothing to do with like the atmosphere of the program and things like that, they can be a little bit indicative of the money. And the money is important, let's all be honest, because if it turns out to be a struggle financially for you this whole time, that's going to be a long 5 to 6 years. And you don't really want that. Grad school is hard enough, guys, okay? Take it from me, okay? So yeah, just, you know, look at things like that as well when you're interviewing. Another thing that you need to consider is whether or not people in leadership positions in the program received you well. And by that, I mean, so for instance, in a place that I interviewed, the director of graduate programs, the DGP, he basically had me in an interview with a male peer, and every time he said something negative, it was directed towards me. And I felt like that kind of already gave us an interaction of negativity, and I didn't choose that program because of it. Sorry y'all, my camera battery died. So as I was saying, basically the relationship between me and the DGP of that one program was not very good to start off with. So I decided not to attend that program. A few last things that I think you should consider are basically if the location you're choosing, if the university you're choosing is in a city that is a hub of research. And that's really important to some people because you want to be able to just stay in the location where you have completed your program and not have to move because of like family or friends or whatever ties you to a place. And I know we're very lucky at North Carolina State University because RTP is right around the corner and many graduates go just on into industry to work there. So it is really nice for us. And on that note, you also want to consider what recent graduates are doing now. If everyone has left your program and gone into industry and you want to stay in academia, that might say something to you. And you just kind of need to think about that because it might mean that every PI's connection is in industry, and that's where they heavily put people, and that might not be for you. So it could potentially be a little bit of an uphill battle to get where you want to go versus where the program usually puts people. But of course, all of these things are for you to consider and for you to think about, and if some things that I said are important to you and others are not, then that's okay because this is truly just a list to help you guys out, and I hope that it was truly helpful. You guys, thank you so much for watching. I hope you stick around to see more of the videos on this playlist. I was about to say channel, but playlist. And I look forward to seeing you next time. Until then, much love from me.